Hello guys, welcome back to the second video of Mastering the GRE question series. In today's video, we are going to have a look at some of the strategies that are going to help you in solving the reading comprehension questions of the GRE Verbal section. In today's video, we are going to have an overview of what are the different types of questions which come on the GRE comprehension and how do we effectively read a particular passage. What are some of the strategies that will help you in solving the questions related to the reading comprehension, and what are the types of questions, some of the strategies for particular types of questions will be dealt with the help of an example of a single passage. So before we start with the strategies, let's have an overview of the reading comprehension type of question on the GRE Verbal section. So you know that you are going to have two sections of verbal on the GRE exam, because the GRE exam is a sectionally adaptive exam. You would find the second section to be a little bit tougher, and obviously if you have done your first section well, the second section will be harder and the questions would also be a little bit higher on the second section. Now, in the first section, you are going to have 12 questions. In the second section, you are going to have 15 questions. So, out of the 12 questions, you may find 1 or 2 reading comprehensions, and similarly, out of the 15 questions also, there might be 1 or 2 reading comprehension passages. Now, there are 3 types of RC questions which you might get. Firstly, we have a multiple choice question. What is a multiple choice question? A simple MCQ question wherein you have a question, 5 options and 1 correct answer. On the other hand, there is another type of multiple choice question which has multiple choice with multiple correct. That means you will have 1 question but only 3 options. But there are 7 combinations of correct answers possible. You can have only A correct, or only B, or only C, or AB, or BC, or AC, or all the 3 ABC can also be correct. And finally, you have select in passage. In select in passage, you have to select a sentence or phrase from the passage which answers the question that has been asked. Now, it is not necessary that every passage will have all these 3 types of questions, but these 3 types may occur on your one section, in different passages, or even in a single passage. Okay? Now, a typical GRE passage can range from anything between 200 to up to 500 words. So, depending on the length of the passage, you can either have a short passage or you can have a long passage. Okay? Also, based on the type of content, there are certain types of passages. So, on the type of content, you can have 4 types of passages on the GRE. You can have humanities, natural sciences, social studies and business. So, you can have passages on the GRE related to history. Definitely, you will find world history, not Indian history. You will find passages related to science, something related to biology or physics, chemistry. Or you will have passages related to social studies, something about business, commerce might be there. And finally, you may feel that if there is anything else, it can come under the social sciences or general studies category. Okay, so these are the 4 types of passages that you might encounter. Again, it's not necessary that you will see all the 4 types, but it will be 1 out of the 4 types. So all in all, you will see 3 to 4 comprehensions in your complete GRE paper. Now, you might see 1 in the first section and 2 in the second, or 2 in the first one and 1 longer one in the second, or maybe 2 in both of the verbal sections. Okay. Now, what are the different types of questions which are there on your reading comprehension? So, firstly, we discussed about MCQ with multiple answers correct and select in passage. Those are the format of questions. But what is the information or what is the strategy that the question is testing? These types are based on that. So, you have questions which test whether you are able to understand the main idea or not. We have questions based on certain details of the paragraph. We have inference questions. in which you have to draw inferences from the information that the author has given. We have function and purpose questions. They might ask you, what is the function of this particular phrase or this particular line in the paragraph? We have vocabulary questions. What is the meaning of a particular word with respect to the content of the passage? And finally, we have structure and logic questions. Okay, so these are the types of questions which are based on strategies, how we are going to tackle the GRE RC questions. And these are some of the general strategies which we are going to employ in reading and solving all these types of questions. So there are particular strategies which are there for particular question types, and then there are strategies which is in general for solving the complete single RC passage. Now for example, first and foremost, what will happen? You will see the passage in front of you and you will see the question. So firstly, you will have to read the passage. So step 1 is active reading. You have to actively read the passage. You cannot miss any details, but you don't have to try to remember everything because the passage is always present on the screen. So highlight in your mind. You are not able to highlight on the screen. Highlight in your mind the main points that you read about. Create a structure or create a story of the passage in your mind. That is called as active reading. Reading to remember what the author is talking about in the passage, but do not wrote or do not learn the passage. Okay. Second step is to understand the question types. Whenever you encounter the questions, always try to understand what type of question is it. Is it a main idea question, or is it an inference question, or is it a structure and logic question, and accordingly employ the strategy to think of the answer. The answer that you think of in your own words is called as a shadow answer, and the shadow answer is going to help you in the third step, that is elimination. Eliminate the wrong choices. Eliminate the options which you think are not correct. Eliminate options which are out of scope, too extreme, and then go for the correct choice. And while doing everything, the one thing that you have to keep in mind is your time management. You cannot spend more than 1.5 minutes or maximum 2 minutes per question. Ideally, you only get 1.5 minutes per question, but you can cleverly save some time from the text completion or equivalence questions. So you can sometimes afford to even give 2 minutes per question, but not more than that. If you have a particular comprehension which has 3 questions, maximum you can spare is 5 minutes of time for that particular comprehension. So do not get stuck at any particular question or any single question and let that penalize the other questions, okay, and affect your performance when you are solving the successive questions. You have to quickly move ahead. You have to realize when it is time to stay and when it is time to let. Okay guys, so whatever we have discussed up till now, let's actually apply some strategies to solve this RC passage, which is an official ETS passage, and there are 4 questions which are associated with this. So first, we'll follow the TAM approach, which has been pioneered by IMS, the topic, argument and main idea approach, in order to understand what the passage is trying to say, and then we'll dive into the questions. So first, let's understand what TAM is all about. So TAM, the TAM approach means T stands for topic, A stands for argument, and M stands for main idea. Now as the name suggests, T means the topic. You will generally get the topic of the passage in the initial 1 to 2 lines of the passage. Argument will be present throughout the passage. Argument is the, you can say, tone of the author, or argument is the voice of the author which is present throughout the passage, and main idea is the main point the author is trying to make, or you can say the final say of the author. Now it's not necessary that we always have a main point in a passage, but topic and argument will definitely be present. Okay, so let's start and let's read the passage. The main argument, or sorry, the main idea will generally be present in the last 2 to 3 lines of the passage. So topic first 1 to 2 lines, argument throughout the passage, and main idea last 2 to 3 lines of the passage. So what does this passage say? During the 1920s, most advocates of scientific management, what is scientific management? Frederick Taylor's method for maximizing workers' productivity by rigorously routinizing their jobs opposed the 5-day work week. So, most advocates of scientific management, they were opposed to this 5-day work week. Although scientific managers conceded, means they gave in to this idea that reducing the hours might provide an incentive to the workers, in practice, they were more often using pay differentials to encourage higher productivity. Those reformers who wished to embrace both scientific management and reduced hours had to make a largely negative case, portraying the latter as an antidote to the former, okay, to the rigors of the former. So, up till now we can get a sense that this passage is talking about your scientific management versus reduced working hours. That is what the passage is talking about, that scientific management which was Frederick Taylor's approach, and further we will read about Henry Ford who had advocated shorter hours. So, Henry Ford's approach. So, this passage is talking about a contrast, or it is giving a comparison about these two approaches. So, our topic can be something to do with shorter working hours compared to scientific management. That is what the author is talking about. Now, let's read ahead. In contrast, so whenever we find a contrast word like but, however, all of these words will tell us about the argument. They will help us in establishing what the author is trying to say. In contrast, Henry Ford claimed that shorter hours led to greater productivity and profits. So, scientific managers did give into this idea that reducing hours might provide an incentive to the workers. They still often used a higher pay to attract the workers to work more, okay, to encourage their productivity. But scientific, in contrast to them, the Henry Ford, you can say another theorist here said, or he claimed that shorter hours led to greater productivity and profits. According to him, few employers were able to match this vision or his specific interest in mass marketing a product that required leisure for its use, and few unions succeeded in securing shorter hours through bargaining. Okay. So, but there were very few employers who were able to match Ford's vision, okay, and they were also not able to, work on his path, the path that he had paved, and they were not able to, and there were only few unions that succeeded in securing shorter hours for their workers, and these unions were also able to do so through bargaining and not by actually making the maybe management understand that fewer hours were better. So, at its 1928 convention, the American Federation of Labor boasted of approximately 165,000 members working 5-day, 40-hour weeks, but although this represented an increase of about 75,000 since 1926, about 70% of the total. So, all of this is data. All of this is data which the author is using to support his point that this came from 5 extremely well organized building trades unions. So, this data tells us that this data is used to support the author's point that although Ford's vision claimed shorter hours and led to great productivity and profits, there were very few employers who were able to match this, and there were only some unions who were successfully able to secure this, or who were successfully able to put this into the actual working of the employees. So in this convention, it was seen that about 165,000 members working 5-day weeks had risen from the initial number of 75,000, but most of them came from only 5 well-organized building traders unions. Okay, so all in all, the passage is trying to tell us that there was a kind of a debate, or there was a kind of a comparison which was going on during the 1920s, and that comparison was about whether longer hours of scientific management approach, or of the approach of scientific management, were better for the workers, were better for the productivity, or were Henry Ford's approach of shorter hours, which would lead to more productivity and profits better. But the author has not given any opinion. The author has not, given a final say whether this approach was right or that approach was right. So we can safely say that there is no main idea, or the main idea is not present, but this is just a general comparison of the two approaches that were present, and how although the second approach was being claimed by Henry Ford, and it was being propagated at that time, but it was not very successful in spreading to a lot of industries, or in spreading to a lot of organizations. That is what our passage talks about. Okay guys, so now that we have understood the passage properly, we will have a look at the different types of questions which can come from this passage. So we know that the passage was talking about this kind of a debate between the scientific management and reduced working hours. So there was this kind of a debate going on between the two concepts. Then throughout the passage, the author has discussed the same, but he has not given any point of view of his own whether he feels that a particular strategy is better than the other. So let's have a look at the first question. What does the question say? The passage is primarily concerned with discussing which of the following. So we just discussed that the passage is concerned with discussing the ongoing tussle or the debate between scientific management or reduced working hours. So let's have a look at the option. The relative merits of two positions or 2 points of view regarding a controversy. Okay, there are 2 points of view, but there is no controversy here. So I think we can safely eliminate A. Let's have a look at B. The potential benefits to workers in the 1920s of a change in employers' policies. I don't think so that a change had occurred completely. Okay, they were only discussing what would be a better approach, but I don't think so the employer changed his policy, and there is no benefit to workers which has been discussed. So rule out B. Then C. The reasons for a labor management disagreement. Okay, we do know that the laborers would definitely argue, and the unions argued for a lesser working hour or duration of hours of the work to be lessened, but there was no disagreement excuse me, that was discussed. So eliminate C. The status of a contested labor issue. Okay, labor issue. So we were actually talking about a debate that was going on. So we can hold on to D, and E is the role of labor unions in bringing about a reform. Definitely the labor unions played an important role, but this is not the entire passage. This is only a very small part of the passage. So this cannot be our primary purpose. So the correct choice here will be D. So this is how we will have a look at the options and reach to the correct answer for a primary purpose question. Let's have a look at the next type. So the next type of question that we have here is a function based question. Now what is a function based question? in which the question might ask you the function of a particular word or a line or a particular phrase. So the question here asks, it can be inferred that the author of the passage mentions automobiles in line number 10 primarily to suggest that. So automobiles is highlighted here. Why does the author talk about automobiles? So let's read. However, matched either Ford's vision or his specific interest in mass marketing a product. So Ford was interested in mass marketing products like automobiles that required leisure for its use, and few unions succeeded in securing shorter hours through bargaining. So majorly the author talks about automobiles to showcase that these were certain products which required leisure, and few unions were able to secure this leisure time. So the mention of automobiles is regarding this. Now let's see which of the options talk about this. Now let's have a look at option number A. Option A says Ford's businesses produced greater profits than did businesses requiring a work week. I don't think so the automobile is mentioned with respect to profits. So eliminate A. Ford, unlike most other employers, I don't think so we talked about other employers. And was Ford an employer? Do we know that? No. Eliminate B. He never encouraged his employees to use the products they produce. That's not mentioned anywhere in the passage. Ford may have advocated shorter hours because of the particular nature of his business. Okay. Ford is advocating shorter hours. Yes, definitely. And automobile is one kind of business in which he had a interest. He had an interest in mass marketing products like automobiles. So that was a particular type of his business. We can hold on to C. Unions were more likely to negotiate for shorter hours in some businesses, but automobile was not a type of a business in which union was negotiating. It is not mentioned anywhere in the passage. And automobile workers' unions were more effective. We never talked about the unions of automobile workers. So D and E are completely out of scope. We can safely mark C as the correct choice. So on the GRE you will notice that it is easier to mark the correct answer if you have understood what the passage is trying to say. Now let's have a look at the next question. The third question is an inference based question. Now what do we mean by an inference based question? On an inference question, we will understand what the author is trying to say in the paragraph about a particular thing or a particular aspect which has been highlighted or which has been mentioned in the question, and then we will be inferring what the author is trying to say. So the inference might not be direct, but it might be indirectly mentioned by the author. So let's have a look at the question. It can be inferred that the author of the passage would most probably agree with which of the following claims about the boast referred to in lines 12 and 13. So what was the boast? Who was boasting? The AFL. So what has the author written about this boast? So at the 1928 convention, the AFL boasted of approximately 165,000 members working 5-day 40-hour weeks, but although this represented an increase of 75,000, about 70% came from the 5 extremely well organized building trade unions. So what do we know about the boast? We know that the AFL had boasted of huge number of employees of different unions being successful in able to reduce their work hours, or they were successful in working 5-day 40-hour weeks. But the author tells us that this representation is only coming from 5 well organized unions. So although this number is huge, the major number, that is a representation of 75,000 of your members only from 5 unions. So the author is trying to tell us that although the AFL might be boasting of a huge number, a major chunk of that number is coming from only a small portion or a small percentage of the total number of the unions. So our answer should lie on some of these lines. Now let's have a look at the options. It is based on a mistaken estimation of the number of AFL workers. I don't think so the number of workers was mistaken. But what was mistaken? They had mistaken that it is coming from a greater number of unions, whereas it was coming only from 5 unions. So the number was not mistaken. It could create a mistaken impression. Yes, this can work. Regarding the number of unions, yes, we talked about the number coming from only 5 unions, obtaining a 5-day 40-hour week. This can work. It exaggerates the extent of the increase. I don't think so it is exaggerating the extent of the increase, because the increase is actually given in numbers, that it increased by 75,000. So it is not exaggerating the extent of the increase. It is not overestimating the bargaining power. I don't think so they are trying to stress on the bargaining power here. And it is based on an overestimation of the number of union members. Again, they are not overestimating the number of the union members, but it is giving a wrong impression that these 75,000 is coming from more unions. Rather, it is only coming from 5 unions. So B will be our correct choice. So you will notice on the GRE that how the options have a word play. And if you are not able to understand what the option is saying, if you are not able to understand the actual meaning of the option, then you may end up marking the incorrect choice. Now let's have a look at the last one, the fourth question, which is a structure and logic question. Now what is a structure and logic question? In a structure and logic question, they will ask you that what is the significance of a particular line, or they can ask you, like in this question, that what are a particular type of people or a particular group of people referring to, what are they claiming. That is a structure and logic question. Sometimes they might also ask how is the claim of these X people changing throughout the passage. That is a logic question. So here we have a question which asks us, according to the passage, the reformers claimed that. So what are the reformers claiming? Let's see. The reformers, those reformers who wished to embrace both scientific management and reduced hours, had to make a largely negative case, portraying the latter as an antidote to the rigors of the former. So what were the reformers doing, or what were they claiming? The reformers, they wanted to embrace both the aspects, scientific management and reduce working hours. So in order to do so, what did they have to do? They had to portray the scientific management and the reduced hours in a negative light. They portrayed the latter as an antidote to the rigors of the former. So they portrayed reduced working hours as a solution to the rigorous and the hard work that scientific management required. So reduced hours was an advantage that was given if you were working under scientific management. So they had to portray one in a negative light. So that is what the reformers claimed. Now let's have a look at the options. A says, neither scientific management nor reduced hours would result in an improvement. I don't think so. We talk about improving the working conditions of the workers anywhere in the passage. So eliminate A. B says the impact that the routinization of work had on the workers could be mitigated. Mitigated means it could be lessened by a reduction in the length of their work week. Yes, so routinization of work is what? Routinization of work is scientific management. Okay, Routinization of work is nothing but scientific management. So the impact of management can be mitigated or can be reduced by a reduction in the length of the work week. That means reducing the hours. So keep B, hold on to B. Let's have a look at C. There was an inherent tension between the principles of scientific. I don't think so the author talks about any tension, or I don't think so that these reformers talk about any tension. So eliminate C. Scientific managers were more likely than other managers. We never talk about other managers. We never talk about scientific managers also for that matter. So eliminate D. And reducing the length of the work week would increase productivity more effectively than would increases in pay. Did we ever compare this? Are the reformers comparing this? No. So what are the reformers saying? That in order to showcase your reduced hours in a positive light, they had to make it an antidote to the rigors of scientific management, which is mentioned in B option. So we can safely mark B as the correct choice. So some of the common mistakes that we should avoid while we are solving questions on the GRE reading comprehension would be, first, to read every word slowly. Okay, so we don't have to read everything which is given on the passage with utmost focus. I know that you might think, what is ma'am saying? She just told us to read the passage carefully and now she's telling us don't read every word. So I am trying to tell you that do not try to overemphasize on every word. Focus on the key areas and the key points. Focus on your TAM, your topic, argument, your main idea. Focus on the contrast words, the transition words, but do not try to, remember everything. Okay? That is our second common mistake, that do not try to rely on your memory, okay, and do not try to remember everything. The passage is always there on the screen, okay. You can go back to the passage, you can go back to any part of the passage, read it again, verify your answer and only then mark your answer choice. Third, do not misinterpret the question. And also I would add on here that do not misinterpret the options, the answer choices. In some of the answer choices in our previous example, we had a look how the options can be very confusing, very close to each other. So it's not only important to interpret the question correctly, but it is also important to interpret the options fully. And do not get trapped by extreme language. Words like best, worst, okay, always, never, they will rarely be correct on the GRE. Also avoid options which generalize the concepts. Go for answers which give you the information specific to the passage. These are some of the mistakes which you can generally avoid on all of the question types. Okay. And finally, practice. Practice is important. What you can do for practice, you can refer to the official study material which is released by ETS. Make an account on ets.org and give the free mock test. Use the free mock test. You can purchase the official material and practice questions from there. Second, practice under timed conditions and try to stimulate the actual exam environment. That will help you get rid of the exam anxiety and it will help you measure your real potential. And finally, review and analyze your mistakes and keep on improving your score as and when you keep on giving the mocks. Okay, when you will analyze your mistakes, try not to repeat your mistakes, because with constant analyzing and avoiding mistakes, you will finally be able to reach to your dream score. Okay, so that's it from my side. If you like the video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. If you want more such content regarding GRE, verbal, quant section and want such more tips and tricks, subscribe to our channel. Till then, happy studying.